What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another video. We're back here at CES Motorsport today, and we are installing the CSF Charge Cooler by Keys Motorsports. So with these cars, the intercooler is actually in the charge cooler, which is on top of the engine. So we're gonna upgrade that to the CSF one today, which looks a ton better. A huge shout out to the guys over at Keys Motorsports for sending this part out. I'm gonna have everything linked down below, and we're gonna show you guys how to install it. It's actually pretty simple. Shouldn't take too long, a couple hours, but yeah, it's gonna be a good one. All right, guys, CSF charge cooler here. Got all the hardware, some documentation. Here's the actual unit itself. Looks really good. A lot of people go for the CSF one. I think it's the best looking one, to be honest.
Cools the air coming in from the turbos. Hot air coming in from the turbos back into the engine gets cooled by this core. So this is an upgraded core from the stock core. The stock has plastic end tanks. This is obviously a cast aluminum end tanks. They don't crack. Let's say the stock ones fail. I mean, people have issues. Some M3 and 4s, like the cars are running lean. It's leaking from the fins here.
Yeah.
Fail, or the plastic fails. Coolant gets into the engine and makes the engine run lean. It's actually a very common issue with those higher mileage cars, those failing on the higher mileage cars.
All right, cool. So here is the CSF charge cooler. In terms of taking off the old one, I think it's pretty self-explanatory for the most part. In order to get the old charge cooler out, we're gonna have to disconnect the charge pipes. We'll have to take off some of the bracing and the plastic pieces. This whole piece comes out. There are a few things that we're gonna be swapping over from the charge cooler into the new charge cooler, and then you have the tank back here that's going to swap over as well. And with this charge cooler, the coolant actually cools the air that comes in from the turbos into the engine, and that's basically how it works. So this one has plastic on each side. That thing is all cast metal, much more durable, upgraded core, lots of benefits with it. In terms of installing it, it's not too difficult, just can be a little time consuming, but we're going to knock it out and bring you guys along for the ride. So we loosened up the charge pipes. Those are going to come off now, off of the charge cooler. We have a few hoses over here. These are all feeding coolant into the charge cooler. We'll have to disconnect those. And then this guy will have to get unplugged. And then the coupler for the J-pipe, which is down there. And then we can pull this whole charge cooler out and we'll swap all the parts over. Clamping a couple of the hoses that feed coolant into the charge cooler to eliminate some of the coolant that'll come out, but some will inevitably come out because there's obviously coolant already in here. You're gonna have to work like a flathead in this clamp up here at the top of the silicone part and just kind of loosen it up, break it free, because this thing's gonna be on there super tight. All right, so we're gonna lift it up real quick before we disconnect everything, because this is gonna bleed out some coolant. Underneath the car, there's that big under panel that we're gonna remove, and that way the coolant won't be sitting in that under panel, and we can just go ahead and drain it out. Loosen the coupler in the back. Do you want me to try and work that J-pipe a little more? There we go. All right, got it out. This guy is, this guy will give you a lot of trouble. So you gotta really, really loosen this up and work your way around it with a flathead. And then you got a few grommets. One is right in there. Few grommets holding it in. So now we're going to drain this thing out, and then we can even use the CSF plugs on the new one once we drain it out. Just make sure nothing gets in there when it's being stored. So yeah, you're basically going to just be transferring everything over from this to the new unit, but of course use the new hardware because some of this is plastic and this is not. and you want to make sure you use the hardware they give you for that. Alright, so we got everything transferred over, got the reservoir, line is connected, the mounting brackets down here are connected, just use the hardware they give you. And pretty cool, the GTS intake manifold has the water injection. You can see it right there feeding into the factory manifold. A little bit different than all the other S55s. I think we're ready to go ahead and install the new one. Just kind of how we pulled it out, and then we'll have to do the coolant. We'll have to put more coolant in it, obviously, and bleed. Yeah, bleeding procedure. So, just about there. All right, so we got everything in. Reconnected the map sensor back here. Obviously, connected the silicone clamp down here. Reconnected all of the coolant hoses, and now we are doing the coolant bleed process. So obviously, when we took that out, we lost a little bit of coolant. So we're gonna add some in there and go through the actual bleed process. And then from there on out, it's really just reconnecting the charge pipes and doing all that. All right, so we'll run through the bleed process real quick. Make sure there's no air in there. You're gonna want to put the car into accessory mode. Put the car out of eco. Turn this all the way to hot. Make sure there's 1 bar of air. Turn these all the way to the right. And then hold down the gas all the way for 10 seconds. So it's gonna be very difficult to hear, but you'll start hearing coolant flow through the lines and bleed through. And that's just removing all of the air out of the coolant system. Usually takes about 5 minutes for it to kick on and start. So at this point, we're all good with the bleeding process. We're just gonna go ahead and reassemble everything, throw back in the charge pipes, throw back in the intake, just the same way that you pulled it out, and we will be done. We'll be good to go. All right, we are back home. First maiden voyage with everything in. Drives so good. Car feels amazing. Everything is staying cool, and dang, this engine bay looks so much better. Really, really happy with how everything went. The install on the charge cooler is pretty simple. Really just taking apart the old stuff and putting it right back together how you found it. Everything is the exact same. Fitment is really good, obviously looks really good. I went for the black for obvious reasons. Kind of doing a black and white theme here, but really happy with the product. If you guys are interested in buying this CSF charge cooler, I'm gonna have it linked down below, but a huge shout out to Keys Motorsports for sending this out. We've got a whole lot more stuff on the way, but this is a good start. But yeah, you guys, thank you so much for watching the video. I love y'all. See you in the next one. Peace.